Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the Paddle and Fin podcast. You're listening to the Reel Down segment. We got an epic guest for you tonight. We're talking about the new B.A.S.S Nation Kayak Bass Fishing Series. Guest John Stewart here give us the reel down on this new series. We're excited. I know I'm pumped up for this. Dan, you feeling good?
Yes, sir. Ready to go. Ready to talk to this fine gentleman being on the show with us tonight.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, John Stewart, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank you.
We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule there at B.A.S.S. and talking to us about this. A lot of buzz in the air right now about this series. There's been a lot of rumor for a long time about this. People have been patiently waiting to see, is it going to happen? And when it does happen, what's it going to look like? And tonight, we're excited to have the opportunity to kind of talk to you about that. But first, let's get to know you, John Stewart. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with bass.
Sure. I've been at Bass for 15 years. Started with Bass in the old weekend series days. I was hired as a weekend series tournament manager. Started bass fishing like a lot of folks, with my relatives, my dad, my grandpa. Got in a bass club when I was 19. I didn't really get in a bass club until I was 19 or 20, but got in that, thought I was going to be the next Hank Parker, which most young guys don't even know who that is. But was going to be the next Hank Parker, win the classic. Quickly realized I'm really not that good. So just kind of got into the club administrative part, became a club president, worked my way up, was a president of the Kansas Bass Nation for a while, and then got involved with the folks at Bass, and the opportunity came along. I was in the right place at the right time, and got hired at Bass, and been at Bass ever since. I'm the Bass Nation director, and when the kayak series thing came along, being the grassroots director basically at Bass, that kind of just fit into our department. So I oversee the Bass Nation, the college, the high school, the juniors. Oversee Hank Weldon, who oversees that portion of it, and now the kayak series. And I will tell you, I'll be right up front. I have learned a bunch in the last few months, about the whole kayak scene, and still have a lot to learn, and I'm just kind of really being a liaison between Tourney X and the tournament directors that are going to be running the tournaments, and Bass is kind of my job.
Okay.
We actually just had Steve Owens on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it was right before the announcement, so he wasn't able to let the cat out of the bag that he was going to be a tournament director.
Right, exactly.
Definitely got some good guys.
Yeah, getting to know all them guys. We had a good call. We had a call last night, just getting everybody on the same page, and there's a lot to learn on both sides, kind of how Bass likes to do things, and how you said patiently waiting. The rumor's been out there for a while. That's kind of how we do things. We go slow, and we try to make it as right as possible the first time we do it, so that we don't have to change a bunch of things. So it takes a while to do that sometimes. So that's why maybe it was a little longer than folks wanted it to be for the announcement to come out. But it's going to be a great deal. I think it's going to be really cool, and I think we're going to get good numbers, and I think it's just going to grow and grow in the next few years.
Absolutely. So, John, have you ever been in a kayak yourself?
I have never been in a kayak.
It's okay. Is that going to change this year?
floated a canoe down a river once, and I'm probably, I don't know, I've just never done it, and I'm going to. I'm going to
Very cool.
out what everybody likes about this, and maybe sell my big bass boat. I don't know.
All right. Already thinking about converting. I like it.
We'll get them.
There we
We'll
go.
get them.
So I got another question, man. As you were talking there a little bit about your background and bringing up, how long it's taken for you guys to put this out there because we want to get it right. For us in the kayak scene, we talk a lot about how kayak fishing is still in its infancy, and there's some debate on whether it is or isn't. But one of the arguments now is to say, hey, we're no longer in our infancy. Like kayak fishing is here. We've got FLW recognizing it last year. Now, of course, there's some things going on there with the merger, but now B.A.S.S is bringing out a kayak series. How long has Bass been looking at this kayak fishing thing and saying to themselves, this might be something we need to get involved in?
We've been really looking closely at it for 2 or 3 years, really. We have two very good kayak advocates in our office. James Hall and Thomas Allen are both big kayakers, and they kayak a lot, and they fish a lot, and floats, and they do tournaments and things like that, and so they brought it up several years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we've had some initial discussions and all that, and then of course all that happened in the last year, and it kind of put a lot of things on the back burner.
Sure.
So we had to get all that straightened out, and now we've got that straightened out, and we're a membership. Bass is a membership organization, so we have 10,000 Bass members, and folks. Some people have asked, why now? Why are you getting into the kayak scene? And basically, because there is a segment of our 510,000 Bass members that we really weren't, servicing very well as members. So, and we realize that. So we're trying to make that right, and we're trying to, make sure that all of our members, whether they be the big bass boat guys, the little bass boat guys, the kayak guys, folks that just fish from the shore, that we're taking care of everybody, and we need to do a better job of that. So that's kind of why.
Okay. So I'm assuming though, also on top of that though, is like saying, hey, there may be a market in which we can get new memberships and draw more people into the Bass organization. That's part of it too, right?
Absolutely. The Bass Nation part of our membership is kind of what we call our premium member. They all pay. Everybody has to be a member to fish one of our tournaments. But the Bass Nation folks, they pay national dues and state dues to be club members and all that. And they're our most loyal members. And so, and that Bass Nation membership has been a little flat. It's been growing slowly, like very slowly, but it has been growing, but it's growing slowly. And, we wanted to improve that. So we want to, all these kayak people that are going to fish the regional tournaments are going to be Bass Nation members. Part of their fee is going to be to make them a Bass Nation member and give them all the same benefits that a Bass Nation member gets, like Bass Times and so forth. And, we're going to make them on the back end, and then we're going to hopefully get a bunch of kayak clubs out of it that join our states. The Alabama Bass Nation is already talking about having their kayak state championship and getting some kayak clubs in there. So yeah, we're looking to grow membership on that level as well.
I think for me, just being growing up with bass and seeing the classic, you had me at just combining and your championship next year with the classic. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm never going to be KVD, but I could be pretty dang good out of a kayak and I can compete in that championship. So if I just the dream that I could be and somehow involved with the classic, you had me signed up. So
Yeah, I
good.
mean
Yeah.
it's going to be a neat deal. We got some pretty good things in store that we think are going to be pretty cool, and I'm sure um, everybody will enjoy. And if you're lucky enough to do well in this first tournament at Logan Martin, you're going to get to taste part of that.
I'll be there. I'm
Nice.
ready to
All
go.
right.
Well, let me start before we go any further and get in more questions. I'll give an overview for folks that don't know, an overview of the tournament series from the Bassmaster fact sheet. There's going to be 5 regional events. Like John said, the first one's on Logan Martin. That'll be done the day before the Classic on March 5th. Lake Fork, Texas on March 14th. Chickamauga Lake in Tennessee on May 23rd. The Mississippi River event in La Crosse, Wisconsin on August 15th. And Clear Lake way out in California on August 29th. It's a $200 entry fee for each one. They're all one-day events with all cash payouts. For practice, it'll be official practice. It'll begin on Mondays prior to the tournament with no off-limits period, and you are able to use other boats before that, I believe. The registrations and briefings will be the afternoon or evening prior to that one-day event. Advertised payout based on 150 boats is 30,000, which is awesome, and it's adjusted for actual field size. And then for everybody who, there's a few different ways. In 2021, there's going to be a Hook sponsored Bass Nation Kayak Series Championship. That'll be in conjunction with the 2021 Bassmaster Classic. And some ways that you can get into it are the top 10% or 20 anglers, whichever is greater from each national regional. The top 10% are 5 anglers, whichever is greater from each state Bass Nation that holds a Bass Nation Kayak State Championship, which John was also talking about. And we'll hopefully be able to dive into that some more. And any angler, this is a great one, and I'm sure it's going to help on participation. Any angler that fishes 4 out of the 5 national regionals also gets into the championship. So far, it sounds great. You've got some great, the lakes that you're fishing at the right time. It's a great looking schedule for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne and the tournament directors, they kind of came up with their wish list of where we wanted to go, and I believe we might have changed one of the original 5 that they had listed, and we were able to work out. That's part of the hard part about scheduling is, we were able to we came in late, so there was a lot of schedules, other circuit schedules already done. So we had to kind of work around and tried to work around as many as we could. And then there's our schedule. Everything is trickles down from the elites, so we kind of have to wait on them to just figure out where they're going to be. And then the opens fit in there, and then all the nation tournaments, and we've got high school and college and junior tournaments all in there. And now we have the kayaks that we're going to fit in there too. So a lot of scheduling, and that's part of the reason it took so long to get it out there is we wanted to get all those locked down before we made, we don't want to have to move anything. And once we make that announcement, that's kind of how we're just we don't like to move anything, not just kayak series, but any series. We don't want to move them if we don't have to. So yeah, it's a good schedule, and should be a lot of big bass caught at those times of the year, and we're excited about those. One thing you were reading off the fact sheet, and I don't have it in front of me. Did you say, does the fact sheet say $200?
It says 250.
250. Because you said
Yep.
200, and I just want to
Yeah.
make
Oh, did I?
sure.
I apologize about that.
That's all right. I just want to make sure everybody knew that it was 250 on that. But yeah, everything else there was, and that's good. You pulled that from the latest. We just updated it too today, so
Yeah, today.
I'm glad you pulled that up today.
So let's talk about some of the particulars with this, because it's been called a national trail, it's been called regional trail, it's been called an open series, it's been it's had a lot of names. So what is this from Bass standpoint? What are they looking at this as? Are these 5 open events? Is this a trail?
Yeah, it's kind of been that's a little the name kind of is a little misleading because it's called a series. We do that with all our series. They're all called series, even though they're not really. Like the Bass Nation regionals are called a series too, but it's not really. It's separate guys from different regions fishing, and so it's not really a series, and it's not really a trail. You do not have to fish all of them. We don't have an angler of the year rate
Point
that
race.
would kind of force, if a guy wanted to be an angler of the year, he would have to go to as
All 5. Yeah.
he could, and that can get expensive. So we took that off the table, but we did leave that fishing 4 out of the 5 in case somebody does do that. They're going to have a shot in. But you don't have to. It's not a series. It's 5 open regionals and strategically put around the country to where we can try to get as many folks from different areas fishing the events as possible. I know we've had some questions about why didn't we go further, like down into the southeast. We got Chickamauga and then we got Logan Martin that are kind of close together. Logan Martin is in there because it's the kickoff and it's the classic, right?
Classic, yeah.
We're doing a lot, and the 50th classic. So we're doing a
Right.
lot of stuff this year at the classic that we normally don't do. We're doing a high school event the weekend
Yeah.
to the classic. We're doing a college event the weekend prior to the classic. We're doing a kayak series right before the classic. All the same week. So, which we normally wouldn't do in a classic, but because it's the 50th, we're kind of blowing it out, and that's why. So, if we didn't have Logan Martin, I'm sure that we would probably be down in that Florida area, and that would spread it out even more. So maybe next year we can be down there.
Very cool. All right. One of the other big questions that's coming up, and this is always, no matter what organization is putting together a tournament series, is that payout structure. So the feedback around that payout structure has been mostly positive, with a 30,000 K payout based on 150 anglers. One of the questions has been, though, and there's a couple. So one of them is, what does that scale look like? How does that scale down from first to 150th, or to 30th, excuse me?
Just off the top of my head, if we have 150 boats, first is going to be 7,000. 30th is going to be 250. So they'll get their money back. I think if they're in the top, I want to say like half, maybe 10 or 12 or something, it's going to be like $1,000. So it's
Okay.
it's pretty good. I think it's pretty consistent with our other,
Yeah.
all the other
Sounds
series,
like
the team championship, the opens and all that. It's pretty consistent with the same level of payout, and we don't have like a formula that we do. We just kind of make it. We kind of go with the series that we're looking at, and we kind of figure out what the anglers are going to want from that series, and we try to make it look good. Like we'll just start at $7,000 is a pretty good first prize based on 150 $50, and then if you can come out of there with $500 or $1,000, be in that top 30 and win 1,000 or 500, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, you know, 7,000 for first place on an open single event like that's really strong. And, you know, getting your money back at 30th place is something we've not seen in our industry yet. I mean, I don't know of anyone on a major platform that pays out past 10th place currently in the kayak world. So,
We
you
try
guys
to
are
pay
definitely
one.
getting some
We try
love
to pay
around
1
that.
in 5 on most of the trails that we do. I mean, that I do, the Nation. We may not do that on the Opens, but on the Nation series and this series and a couple of the others, we try to do 1 in 5. So you know, if it falls below 150, we'll go 1 in 5. We'll
Yeah.
always try to get. I always like to try to get that spot to get their money back. You know, I just feel like as an angler, that's what I would want.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
I don't want to. If I'm the last paying spot, I don't want to $20. I'd rather have nothing. You know, I'd rather that $20 go to the first place guy. But if I'm getting my entry fee back, then that's different. You know, that's
Yep. Gas
Has there
money.
has there been any thought for, obviously this isn't a classic, or the championship isn't going to be a $500,000 Happy Gilmore check, but is there a certain amount or a percentage that you're holding back for the championship, or has it been thought about like there's going to be a certain prize to make it to a championship, the person will win this much money, or do you know any of the specifics on that yet?
don't know the exact payout on the championship. I do know there will be an entry fee, like we do with the team championship, and it'll probably be a little more of an entry fee to make the payout bigger. But I think we're going to pay out a higher percentage at the championship. I do know that than we do at a regular regional.
Okay.
All
right.
We haven't got that far along yet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So there's been some people doing the math, right? They take a look at the payout, and they do this with all of them. Kayak anglers are known for one thing, and that's being really, really good at math, or at least thinking they're really good at math. So one of the questions has come up is like, hey, when you do the math, there's some money left that's not on the table. Now, I would assume, and other people are making their own speculations, but I'm assuming B.A.S.S is a large organization and has a lot of people in there they gotta take care of, as well as permitting fees and marketing and advertising and all that. So I'm assuming that's where those funds are going. Would I be correct in saying that?
Absolutely. We have our business model is a different business model than you're just your local tournament series.
Right.
These local tournaments, or a guy that's running a kayak tournament, that's all he's running is the one series. We're running 3 or 4 or 5 different types of series, and they don't all get the same. So when we sell advertising, when we sell membership or sponsorships, all that goes into a big pot. It's kind of like Alabama Crimson Tide football team brings in all the money, or whoever, Auburn, whoever, whatever.
War Eagle.
The football team brings in all the money. It's then divided up all the way down through everything, wrestling, and they're not bringing in the money. So that's how our business model is. So there's not a set amount of money that's coming in for the kayak series, and that's all we use. If we did that, the payouts would probably be less. Be quite
right. Fair enough. Well, I just wanted to ask that because, like I said, there's been a lot of talk about that, and I just wanted to clear that up and put the kibosh on all the rumors and speculation there. So one thing that B.A.S.S has always done really well is promoting the anglers and the series and the media coverage. So, and that's one element we've really missed in the kayak industry. And we're picking up. Hobie did a really great job this year, really stepping up their game on that. But we don't have the media coverage like you would see in other larger bass events. Even the high schoolers, in some cases, have more media coverage than kayak bass fishing does. And of course, that's important to us. So, can you speak a little bit about that? Because there is a rule that has brought up some conversation, and that's that guys can only use 10 minutes of their own footage. So, can you speak a little bit to that rule and what Bass has in store as far as the media goes?
Yeah, that rule is in there in case we get TV or a sponsor like a Tacticon or a GoPro or something like that, Tacticam or a GoPro or something like that, that we make a deal with, that we have to use their footage, right? So we have to have it in our rules that just in case that happens, that you got to follow those rules and not use your footage. However, we don't have that right now. So
Okay.
that rule is basically, and this will be briefed at all the briefings by the tournament directors. The kayak anglers can use all the footage they want right now. It's there.
Okay.
That's not going to be a rule that we um, honor or
Enforce.
enforce right at this time. It's in all our rules. It's in the open rules. It's in the nation rules. It's in the elites. And even on those, we don't enforce them all the time. We do more on the elites because there's TV and
Sure.
stuff that we want to show on the show before it's aired on somebody else's YouTube channel or something like that. That's what it's designed for. As long as we don't have TV and we don't have a sponsor that wants us to use that rule, then we won't.
It seems like I'm a man of details and reading all the rules. There was a couple like that were interesting to me that we haven't seen in other series. It doesn't mean that it's something that is incorrect, or it's just different. Like one rule that we've never seen before is you can't talk on a cell phone during a tournament to another angler in the tournament. And it's something I've never done. I don't call up my boys who were in the tournament, but some people do. So that was one that struck me as, well, I've never seen this before.
Right. That's a standard rule in all our rules. It's just to keep it an even playing field, because not everybody's going to have a buddy they can call. So we want to keep it fair as possible, and that's why that rule's in there.
I think for us, a lot of the time, just the distance that we can travel then kind of prevents that sometimes, but it could be the case, and I could see why you'd want that rule.
Yeah.
There's did you have another question?
Well, I just to follow up on that. Sometimes in kayak fishing, those phone calls aren't necessarily about tactics or locations, but those calls are about safety. Those calls are about conditions. Those calls are about, launching. You're launching with a buddy or meeting back up with a buddy at the end of launch. Those kind of things. So in those cases, is there some wiggle room with that, or
Sure. No, absolutely. Just like any of our tournaments, you can use your phone for safety, for checking the weather, for checking the generation, things like that. It's just you can't use it to catch or locate fish or get information on how to catch or locate fish, basically. And it doesn't really spell that out in these rules, but our directors will brief that way so everybody knows.
Yeah.
okay?
I, for the I have a question about sponsorships. I know you're not in the marketing department there at B.A.S.S, but y'all have come out with some very strong sponsors for the series. Hook, I believe Abu Garcia, Tourney X. Was it easy to get these companies to buy on to a kayak series? Do you know? It seems like a Hook, we might not have the $80,000 bass boat with 2 graphs and all that good stuff, but we wear the same amount of clothes that they do, or
Sure.
sometimes more because we're more exposed to the elements with the water.
I wouldn't. I don't know whether it was easy or not. I wouldn't call any of the sales guys' jobs easy to sell any of
Yeah,
it at any level, um, for the amounts that you have to be to do to sponsor a bass event. And I don't know exactly what even those amounts are, but I know there's a lot of interest, and I know that we're signing some more as we speak. So
Great.
I wouldn't say
That's
it's
awesome.
easy, but there's a lot of interest and a lot of positive interest in the kayak portion of bass from sponsors, our current sponsors, and some that aren't our current sponsors, which is good for bass to get new sponsors, new folks coming on board.
Absolutely. Okay. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the state level stuff. So you talked about this being a grassroots program. We've got these regional events, these 5 regional events, plus a championship. Um, so what are we looking at below that though? At the state level, you kind of hinted to it a little bit earlier. Um, what kind of involvement are you looking from the states, and what kind of programs might we see pop up from this?
Yeah, I don't know how familiar your viewers are with the Bass Nation or the club, how it's all divided up, and but every state, the Alabama Bass Nation has a board of directors that oversees all the bass affiliated clubs in Alabama, and they can run their own tournaments to form a state team. Then the state team goes. I'm talking about the boat tournaments now. They form a state team and they can go to a regional tournament and then eventually make it to the national championship and eventually make it to the classic for these anglers. There's also a team bass team championship. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that's team trails across the country that are affiliated with bass, and they can send their top guys to a national championship we're going to have in a couple weeks at Hartwell, and that top guy from that event will go to the classic. I envision the kayaks series and the kayak clubs to be a lot like the team, to be run a lot like the team series is, where the states, they have the option to run a state championship. It's not going to be anything that's mandatory. We don't make the states do any certain structure on how they qualify their state teams, or whether or not they have a team championship in their state, or whether or not they have a high school or a junior or a college state championship. They all do, but they all didn't in the beginning. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. We've got several states that are really gung ho and on board already to form a state championship, and whether that be having a little series within their state that leads to their state championship, or whether that be just having a state championship and anybody that's in a club that's a member of the Alabama Bass Nation can fish. That's it can be that, or it can be
So you already have states that are getting involved in this and are saying, "Hey, we'd like to form a state Bass Nation group for kayak anglers and
yeah.
allow them to compete for a state championship." You've already got some involvement in that for the 2020 season?
we've actually had, we don't have any official clubs that are set up yet, but there are states that will do it in 2020. Yes, to answer your question, there are states that will have a state championship in 2020.
I asked that question for two reasons. One, I think that's an important thing for our listeners to know because we have a lot of tournament directors and club organizations that listen to our podcast, especially the Reel Down. But also, too, personally, I run a group called Hoosier Kayak Bassin, and that interests me as well. That there's a possibility for that. Now, you talked about that pathway, and I personally am familiar with the Bass Nation trail and state championship stuff. So you talked in that about there being a pathway to the classic. Could we see kayak anglers have a pathway to end up in a boat at the classic and compete for the classic title?
Great question.
I think there's a great opportunity if they want to do it to join their state Bass Nation because and fish. If at some point they would have to get out of their kayak and get in the back of a boat and be like,
okay.
But that non-boater can make it all the way to the classic.
Sure, absolutely.
Familiar with Ryan Levine.
Yep.
He fished as a non-boater through his state championship, through the regional, through the national championship, won the co-angler side of the national championship, turned around and won the boater side of the national championship because the co-angler champion gets to fish the final day of the cut at the national championship. And then, so he made it to the classic. And then we provide a boat. We provide boats for any non-boater that would make it that far. So eventually you would have to get out of to make it to the classic, you would have to get out of the kayak and get in the back of a boat. But I could see if you want to, I mean, it's totally what y'all want to do. And if you want to set up something like that in Indiana and you, because they need non-boaters. So you maybe qualify through the kayak to a certain point maybe you get past the national championship and you qualify, and maybe there's a spot on the state team for the state kayak champion. Maybe there's a spot on the state team for that. I could see that happening.
Okay. So for now, though, since we don't have a dedicated pathway for a guy to qualify for the classic just out of a kayak, what these states, this year and the following year that come together and form these clubs through the Bass Nation, they create these state championships and get these state teams. Where does it go from there right now? What's the current idea behind that, or is there?
There's not a state team path like the others. All there is a state championship, 10% or the top 5, whichever's greater, going straight to the championship. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Indiana, you form a club and you get with the state board, Kerry Richardson and that group, and you set up a kayak state championship and you grow it from there.
Okay.
I envision a lot of that happening because these states aren't familiar with how kayak fishing works either.
Sure.
They're going to need somebody like you, somebody like Steve, somebody like those folks to be on their board and just kind of take over the kayak portion of the Indiana Bass Nation or the Alabama Bass Nation, whatever it may be. You need help doing that, and I think they're anxious to take the help because they want to grow their membership, and this is an opportunity to get a bunch of new people in the Alabama Bass Nation that have never been part of it before. So, there's a lot of good things, and it's wide open. I think we just have to have an open mind and to tell you I know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years on the state levels. I'd be lying to you. I don't, but I do know, like with the team championship, at the first year or so, there was 4 or 5 states that had a state team, a team championship, state championship, and now there's like 20 states.
Nice.
So they'll jump on board. It may be a slow process, but they'll jump on board eventually.
I think
it's
for
exciting.
us, here in Alabama, we have a Alabama State Kayak Fishing Classic where all the clubs in the state, your top 10 guys, AOY for each club, gets invited to the championship for that state classic. And if you were a classic member and that was affiliated with the nation, those could be the people. So for here in Alabama, it seems like it would be a easy thing to plug into.
That's kind of what Steve's doing, I think, in
Tennessee.
Tennessee. He's already been in contact with, the state president of Tennessee, and I think that's kind of what they're thinking. Just no need to reinvent the wheel. Just get them signed up with the Tennessee Bass Nation or the Alabama Bass Nation, and maybe call that championship that you're talking about the Alabama Bass Nation, or in conjunction with, and they can do one. You can have your kayak state championship, and the same tournament can be the Alabama Bass Nation state championship. As far as I'm concerned, we want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to fish with bass and with the Bass Nation and advance to that national championship. We're not here to make it difficult. We're trying to make it as simple as possible.
Awesome. Well, thanks for talking to us about that, because I think that's a very important part of the fishing community as a whole, especially the kayak fishing community, that grassroots and that ability to get people involved at the state level and local level. So that's some really cool insight, and I think it's exciting. And Dan, I assume you feel the same way about this, that there's a lot of possibility there. The groundwork is being laid right now, and who knows what the future holds for not only this regional or national level events, but also at the state level to see the Bass organization get involved there as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the flavor of Bassmaster from the Bass Nation, kind of your formula and how that fits with kayak fishing, and how it's all going to work out. We've been doing it differently with a couple of other series, and I'm just interested. I'm going to be a part of it, and I'm just interested to see how it's all going to go. A question I have with that, I understand B.A.S.S been so successful over the years, arguably the most successful, and was it ever thought about to kind of link up with one of these other series that were already going, and just kind of like the KBF FLW, how they linked up? Was there ever any talks about we're going to link up with another series, or was it always thought we're going to do it and we think we can do it our way and be successful like that?
I don't think there was ever any thought of teaming up with somebody. There might have been some in the back room or something thinking about that, but I think that and it's not like, and obviously we don't, that's kind of why we paired with Dwayne and Tourney X and the group of tournament directors that they have is, I think James and Dwayne got to know each other. James Hall and Dwayne got to know each other, and I think it just started there. And I think it just went. With it, with starting something completely fresh and completely from scratch. And I don't ever recall there ever being any talk of pairing up with somebody else or an already existing.
Yeah. Well, I say that too, but some of the tournament directors that you've gotten with and Tourney X, it's almost like the same thing, where
Yeah.
people that have been so successful and such, they've worked out the bugs of how a tournament should be ran in with the kayaks, and by you having those people, it should be great events because like Steve Owens, we're all respectful of some of the guys that you've chosen as tournament directors.
Well, I mean, that just makes sense especially if you're getting into something that you honestly don't know a lot about, and we don't, and we're learning. So we're going to rely on those guys. And, like I said, we had a great call last night, updated the rules, tweaked a few things, that we posted on there today, and some things that they pointed out were, either not necessary or need to be tweaked a little bit. And it all made sense. So we made the changes, and that's kind of how we're gonna roll with it. And hopefully it's a great, successful first year, and we'll go from there.
It seems like I was fortunate enough. I fished for the University of Montebello here. I went back to college with the GI Bill, and I loved fishing bass B.A.S.S. then. Is there a kind of an ultimate goal of with kayak fishing to include juniors, to include the high school, and maybe the lower cost of being able to angle from being an angler from a kayak with the juniors, high school, and college guys rather than from a boat? Is that something that's kind of on your radar for the future? I understand it's only the first year and there's a lot of things that can happen, and you want to see what's going to happen. But is that kind of maybe a goal one day?
Absolutely. Anything that, the high school and the juniors is huge. It's
Yeah.
blowing up. But with that, there's not enough boats. There's not enough boat captains. I know that some of the youth directors have already thought about, hey, we can get some of these kids that haven't been privileged enough to have a grandfather or an uncle or whoever that's got a boat that can take them out. Now they can get a kayak and maybe go from there. So yeah, there's been some of that already talked about. We just got to figure out what that is, what that means, and how we incorporate that into the high school and the junior program. But yeah, I mean, I see that happening.
I want to see a dad out there. I know they have captains in the boats now. I want to see a dad out there following them around in a different kayak.
Yeah,
It'd just be funny to see.
yeah.
Well, hey, we got that already out there. We've got guys like Dylan Fuqua and his dad out there. And Jackson Orr, Jim Orr out there now. Jim competes. Dylan's dad doesn't, but we've already got that. So I think there would definitely be some interest in that. I can just speak here locally in Indiana. Recently at the Turkey Bowl, we had two teams of young anglers. One was college group, the other was high schoolers. Young kids out there, and their dads are out there following them around. Really cool to see. So I think there'll be a ton of interest in that. And again, personally, I'm interested in being involved in that as well. So I think that's awesome. As we talk, we're kind of getting into where we're talking a lot about the future here. The championship next year, I want to touch on that real quick. So the championship for this year's regional events, where they all take their qualifying anglers to next year's championship, that's going to be held in conjunction with the Bassmaster Classic. Do we yet know where that will be held? What lake? Or no? That's to be determined. Correct.
No,
Okay.
we didn't.
So the question
You don't want to
is,
release the location of the classic on our podcast?
You guys would love that.
I see.
I don't even know.
I very nonchalantly tried to get it out of there, but he's
I don't even
well
know.
trained.
If I told you, it'd be total speculation. I have no idea.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. Well, what I'm interested in knowing, and I think a lot of our listeners are, we saw this year Hoosier Kayak Bass. I'm talking about myself again. We saw Kayak Bass Fishing KBF partner with FLW for an Open and the FLW KBF Cup, where we got to see kayak anglers on the Bassmaster stage in the limelight, getting that media coverage, getting that time in front of a huge crowd. It was a special moment for everyone involved, not just the guys that were on there, but the guys that were competing and watching it in the stadiums that day. Are we going to see that with Bassmaster? Are we going to see guys on the classic stage next year at the championship?
Yes.
Take my money.
All right. Well, somebody send me that URL link. I'm ready to sign up.
I mean, this is, again, there's a lot of details to work out.
But that's a firm yes you gave us.
Not
right
just
there.
next year at the champion, not just next year at the championship. This year at Logan Martin.
Ooh.
I envision it happening as we fish on Thursday, and we reveal who's in the top 10 or something like that, but not what place they're in that top 10. And we pay out 11 through 30 or however many we have. And then we ask the top 10 to come back on Friday, and we do that reveal on the classic stage, the top 10, 10, go 10, 9, 8, put their fish up on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
Do something along those lines. That's
awesome.
In mind, and and then just crown a inaugural Logan Martin champion on the classic stage.
I want to hear long bass.
I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
So yeah, it's going to be cool, and then we plan on doing that at the championships as well. We do the same with college and high school. We have an exhibition, and it may be a little different this year with the two tournaments. The weekend prior, we may incorporate the winners of those tournaments and bring them back the next weekend and so forth. But we haven't worked out all those details, but that's kind of what I've got in mind anyway.
You have to let them bring in their tow rig with a kayak in the back of the truck or on the trailer.
We've talked about that, but probably not.
That would be awesome. No, dreams. I have dreams. Right. I'm sorry.
Hey, look, let's just be happy with the fact that Bass has a series and we have a chance to walk on the classic stage. We'll work on the tow rigs, Dan. We'll work on the tow rigs.
All right.
All right. Well, guys, this has been insightful. I think we've answered a lot of the top questions out there right now about this series. And for those that haven't heard about it, I think they got a really good look at what this is going to be about. I'm excited for this season. I don't have anything set in stone on my schedule yet, but you better believe I'm looking very closely at Logan Martin and a couple of these other events. So, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing with us all this information. Really appreciate it, John. Is there anything else that you would like to share that maybe we haven't covered tonight?
Registration is open for all the tournaments. They can just go to Bassmaster.com. They do have to be a Bass member. You got to be a Bass member to register for any of our tournaments: high school, college, nation, elites, opens. Got to be a Bass member, so get that taken care of first. But you can do all that on Bassmaster.com, and then you can just go to the tournaments tab and right under kayaks and click on register and register for the tournaments. It's there. It's open, ready to roll. We've got a bunch of entries already in, and it's going to be good.
And right now you're having a sale on the membership. It's only $15, right?
Typically, you can get a first-time membership for $15, correct?
Very cool. And so the entry cap is 150 anglers, correct?
There is no cap.
No cap. So that's an updated.
That's just what the payout is based on, and the payout will go up or down, plus or minus 150.
Okay, so there you guys have it. There is no cap. That was something that a lot of people were thinking that there was 150 cap on that. So no cap on the
not
entries.
this year anyway. If it and I don't know. I don't know if that's something you need in kayak tournaments, but
Probably not.
probably not. I would think so. We don't have a cap.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Head over to bassmaster.com, get that membership, sign up for those tournaments. Got a pathway to stand on the classic stage either this year or next year. I mean, you can't beat that. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of the media coverage and the turnouts for these events. I think it's gonna blow up. I think it's gonna surpass whatever you guys are anticipating here. And I'm sure Dwayne's told you that more than once. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. Dan, you got anything else for the man tonight?
No, that's it. Thanks for being on the show. Looking forward to a series and seeing what Bassmaster and B.A.S.S does with kayak fishing and how far it can go, both state level, grassroots, and all the way up.
I appreciate y'all for having me.
All right. Well, we'll follow up with you later on, John, but thanks for coming on the show once again. We're going to let you get back. And thanks for taking time out of your evening for us. We really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks.
Yep.
This segment is brought to you by Jigmaster Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
All right. Welcome back. We just got finished up talking to epic guest John Stewart of B.A.S.S Nation. Pretty much runs the nation over there, oversees all of the different tournament trails from high school, college, the team trails, state trails, and now kayak fishing. Pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, it's he's I think a little bit more high level and didn't have all the specifics because he's not a kayak guy, but definitely gave us some great insight to what the ideas are and where they're going and everything about they could. Definitely knowledgeable and somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, and it seems like it's going to be great for kayak anglers.
Absolutely. I think it's always good when we have more options, and I think when you have the recognition of one of the biggest organizations in the industry, if not the biggest. I mean, come on, it's B.A.S.S. It can't be but a good thing, and like you said, maybe he didn't know all the specifics of the kayak tournament formats and all that, but what he did and what he was able to do was answer some very important questions that a lot of people have been bringing up, things from, the series itself and how it's going to work, the platform, the entry fees, the payout schedules, and some of that grassroots stuff as well. And then, he was able to answer all our questions about the different rules that we brought up. So really great stuff there. And definitely, I think for our listeners who are involved, tournament directors who are involved at the state level and want to possibly, get the nation stuff rolling in their state, a great contact there for everyone, at Bass to start those programs up. I think it's going to blow up. I think that's something that people are going to be really interested in. I know my wheels are already turning. This was awesome. I got a lot of the questions I wanted answered and learned a few things about the series. I'm pumped up.
And two, he's the leader of the Bass Nation, and a leader is only as good as the people that they put in place, and they have put the right people in place. So although he might not have all the answers, the people below him that he's put in place for kayak fishing definitely know what they're doing. So yeah.
I guess I didn't I knew, Dwayne was involved as a sponsor and they were utilizing his platform. They're powering all of this through Tourney X. I guess I didn't realize, and you just got little brief insights from listening to John tonight, how much involvement he actually has in this. It sounds like he's really helping organize these tournament directors and organizing, how this thing's going to go down. So we might have to get our boy Dwayne on the show to talk a little bit more about this here in the future.
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Well, it's been an awesome episode. Got a lot of great information going out to you this week. We're going to wrap this thing up. We'll see you on the next episode of The Reel Down. Stay tuned.
Wear your life jackets.
It's cold out there.